What's up, guys? Thanks for tuning into another episode of Sean vs. Wild. I am the man, the myth, the Sean Thriller Smith, your host. And right off the bat, thank you so much for giving the show a chance. If you're a dedicated listener listening week in and week out, can't thank you enough. If this is your first time checking out the show, hopefully you like what you hear. Hopefully you'll stick around for the new episodes. Go back and listen to the old ones. I'd really appreciate it. And on today's show, I've got Josh Handy, a guy that I met on Warped Tour when he was out with a company called My Life versus Your Vacation. But Josh, you might recognize that name, might recognize his face also from Season 2 of Warped Roadies. He's a pretty main character player on that season. And, he talks about his life, man, how he went from basically civilian on the street to, a guy out here making his dreams happen. And very motivational, very positive. And this week's a two-part episode. So you're going to get part one, where Josh talks about how he went from point A to point B and how you can as well, and how you can accomplish your dreams. And he's going to give you a lot of advice. The dude just radiates positivity. So it's a nice, positive message. And then, like I said, this is a two-part podcast this week, so you're going to get a Friday episode. Friday is specifically about a new movie that Josh is getting made, and him and writer-director Bolin Miller sit down with me for part two. And the movie's called Iron Lung. It's a horror movie. It's going to be very tight. You're going to hear all the details on that on Friday's episode. But Josh was cool enough to have me out to his estate. He's got a beautiful 300-plus acre estate out in Kentucky, and I drove up there. It's lovingly called HandyLand. So I drove out to HandyLand, and we hung out, had a great day. I've never been on an ATV before. We were out there, out on the property, out there in the compound, riding our ATVs, showing me around the land there. It was a great day, you know what I'm saying? We had a nice lunch at some small-town restaurant that you'll hear all about on Friday. So, But, guys, this is going to be a great week, and I appreciate you tuning in. Also appreciate my sponsors at Audible. At Audible, you can, just for tuning into the Sean vs. Wild podcast, just for being a fan, Audible's going to give you a free 30-day trial of their services. Audible, it's owned by Amazon, or it's an Amazon company there. And basically all you got to do is go to audibletrial.com from your desktop or laptop, and go to audibletrial.com/Sean vs. Wild, SEANVSWILD. Sign up for your free 30 days. Get an audiobook of your choosing. They have over 180,000 titles that you can choose from. And enjoy. Enjoy free 30 days. And when you do that, it's going to give me a kickback. They're going to give me some money to keep the show going, to keep the lights on here at the Smithsonian. Also want to thank Audiophile Inc., my OG sponsor, sponsored me since very close to the beginning of the show, and here we are 45 and 46 episodes deep. AudioPhileInc.com, man. Shane is going to give you the best deal in town, no matter what town that you live in. Screen printing on the brands that you like, the logos that you want. You want to look cool, man. You got a band, you got a business, you got a podcast, you got something that needs to be slapped onto a t-shirt or a tank top or a hooded sweatshirt at this time of year. He's got you covered. So go to AudioPhileInc.com, talk to Shane, tell him the Wild Man sent you. Big thanks to Joe Brock, man. I know he keeps a busy schedule, and he's doing 2 podcasts this week. So thank you so much for booping the dials, per usual. And everybody, please, if you like this show, please like it on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Please subscribe. That's the big ones. Please subscribe. Please leave me a 5-star review. I know that's a lot to ask, but just a little bit goes a long way. Word of mouth is how this podcast is spreading. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to build these numbers up more and more, especially throughout next year. Next year, I have a big goal in mind. I don't know if I want to necessarily say it. I might have said it before, but I'm going to try to do 2 podcasts a week starting in 2018. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know if it's going to be an every week thing or it's going to be just a more regularly occurring thing. But yeah. Anyway, guys, I've rambled enough. It's time to get down to business here and have a great, positive, awesome, in-depth conversation with Josh Handy. Thanks again for tuning in. Let's get wild.
Josh, I haven't talked to you in over a year, but I really love this dynamic that we have going on here, because I pull up today and you're like, come to HandyLand, your little fortress off the beaten path.
Yes, sir.
And I show up and it's not much different than the little town that I grew up in. So I feel at home. And then I see you as I pull up, and we're wearing the exact same shirt.
You know, when I saw you pull up and you were wearing the same exact flannel, it was almost meant to be. Like, we know, same jeans, undershirt, black, flannel.
Yeah.
Like, exact same.
We're just two gorgeous Al Borlands here today. You know? Two really good-looking Dan Connors here today.
That is the truth. And I agree. No, it's been some time since I've seen you, man, but you look great.
Oh, yeah. Podcasting has made me fat, but I appreciate that. You look great as always.
You
ever thought about becoming a pro wrestler? I know you had some things, some irons in the pro wrestling fire, but when I see you, long, gorgeous, glowing golden locks and that beard, I'm like, you ever think about becoming a pro wrestler, Josh?
You know, I have actually been told that I should become a pro wrestler, and I was doing that thing with NXT. Was it a couple years back now?
A couple years back, yeah. Louder Than Life back in the day.
Yeah, I was stage managing down at the NXT tent for Louder Than Life, and I actually had several of the little kids come up to me asking me for my autograph, thinking that I was one of the wrestlers. Like, you know, they already assumed that I was one of the wrestlers.
You look just like, you have a pro wrestler's physique and the long hair, the beard. You don't look much different than a wrestler that, his name's Chris Hero on the indie circuit, but he's in NXT right now. It's Cassius Ohno.
Okay. I'm not familiar, but I'll have to... Cassius Ohno?
Yes.
Okay.
Don't worry. I'll get you all caught up on your wrestling before the day's over.
Yeah.
So we're sitting here, guys. By the way, this is the Sean vs. Wild podcast. You know me, the man, the myth, the Sean Thriller Smith, the guy putting rad back into talk radio. It's time to rock and roll all night and podcast every Tuesday, if you will. And I'm sitting here with Josh Handy, good friend of mine from the Warped Shore days. But I'm stoked that you were able to do the show today, because when I first started the idea of doing a podcast, you were one of the first names on my list. I was like,
really?
Josh has a lot of irons in the fire. He's a businessman, entrepreneur. And I was like, I got to get him on the show. He's got to tell everybody about how to be successful in life.
Well, I'm still learning how to do that myself, you know. But, yeah, man, you first started traveling Warped Tour what year?
2013.
2013
was our first year, and we did 2014 also.
Okay, yeah, I came on in 2012 temporarily, just like for like 2 or 3 weeks of the tour. And then that's when I met you. It was 2013 and 14. Yeah, no, and just to refamiliarize myself with it, it was oh baby yeah, correct?
Baby yeah.
Baby yeah, not oh baby.
Don't
yeah.
worry, that's so funny because people are like, oh, so you're an oh no baby don't please, and I'm like, you're close enough.
Yeah,
sounds good to me.
No, I mean, it was right there.
It was,
you know,
on the tip
close.
of your tongue.
Yeah, it's been some time. But, yeah, we met then, and it was really actually, you know, for those that don't know, I was able to host this benefit concert for the Boys Hope, Girls Hope Foundation up in Cincinnati, and your band headlined my event in Findlay Market, downtown Cincinnati.
Yep.
And we got to do this cool news interview on, was it Channel 9? I think it was Channel 9 News, or Channel 12.
9. I'm not sure what the Cincinnati, me being a Louisville native, I'm not sure.
Right, yeah. It was 9 or 12. I'd have to go back and actually look.
It was probably at 4 or 5 in the morning. It was great.
It was early.
But hey, it turned out nice.
It turned out
I was really
good.
sharp looking then. Me and Blake dressed me up real nice.
Oh my goodness.
I was just killing the game that day.
You guys were fly. You put on a good show too. We had a good time out there.
Thank you. I had a great time. It took us forever to get there, and I apologize about that. But towards the end, that van really did not want to work in our favor.
And a touring van does have those difficulties.
That's what happens when you put hundreds of thousands of miles on a vehicle, listeners. Let this be a lesson to you.
No, it's lots of lessons learned out on the road. I mean, I used to travel on all kinds of tours, tour buses and vans, and we've had all the problems that you can imagine. So I know what a van goes through.
I will say this, listeners out there, if you're touring, have at least one person know something about vehicle maintenance.
Yes.
And repair.
Trailer maintenance. Yeah.
Trailer maintenance and repair.
Pack your bearings. That's the biggest thing you need to know. Make sure those bearings are packed.
Yes. Grease your axles.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's a little helpful pro tip from Josh Handy and I. Make sure you know what you're doing, because otherwise you're going to learn the hard way and the expensive way. Take it from us.
No, I mean, that's definitely a good lesson learned, especially for those that are looking to travel. I mean, that's the biggest thing, is just as a band up and emerging in this industry, a lot of them do just hit the road, and they're solely focused on their music and fan interaction. There are a lot of things outside of touring that you do have to familiarize yourself with, and as you said, vehicle maintenance, trailer maintenance are such a huge thing.
It's got to be paramount. It's got to be number one.
Yes, yeah.
So
have somebody that, traveling mechanic, pay them, make them the driver, whoever it is that knows what they're doing, make sure you have them with you.
Man, you're filled to the brim with pro tips, so I'm going to be asking your opinion on a lot of stuff here today.
I've learned a lot from my dad, so I utilize a lot in my day-to-day. So.
Thanks, Mr. Handy. It's so funny because your last name's Handy, and you are so handy.
Yeah, I've grown up with that, and I've seen more so year after year, now that I'm getting older, how much that I actually have learned over the years, and how it has been a very handy ability to be able to do those things.
Well, me personally, like if you were to say, "Hey, change the oil on this," I probably wouldn't be able to do it. So I'm gonna need, I'm gonna need some advice. Maybe I'll pick your brain all day today about how to be a better craftsman.
Well, while you're here, I'll take you out on the farm, and we'll throw you on the tractor, and you'll bush hog a stripe or two in the field.
While you're here, do some work. It'll really build your character.
If my dad were here, you would have already been working. He would have had 3 things on the table. Everybody, he's a project manager in his expertise, and we would have already been working.
Yeah.
Don't just stand there. Do something, even if it's wrong.
There you go. Hey, quit, you can play with your friends after the work is done, sir.
Exactly. Yeah, we have work to do.
Get those flannels off. You're going to be working hard.
Yeah, you guys look hot. Take the flannels off, okay?
Exactly. Funny story is I bought this specifically for, the upcoming change of seasons. And the last time I wore this shirt, I ran into Kevin. Kevin, singer of Uh-Huh Baby Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And now he's in a new band called Summer Youth. Shout out to them.
Kevin, great.
Ran into Kevin. And we were wearing the same shirt also. So this is my lucky shirt. It just brings...
You guys were wearing the same flannel?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wish he were here so we could see if it would... Yeah.
I'm thinking we should make it the new uniform.
I agree.
I agree.
No, every time we meet up, at least a weekly deal, if we were to meet up, we should wear the flannel.
Yeah. I think like some sort of, fraternity would be... what we need to start here.
What do you think, like fake names on patches?
Yeah, the Fraternity of Flannel.
Yeah, that's great.
The FOF.
Yes.
Yeah. And that just came right off the old dome piece here. But guys, thanks so much for tuning into the Sean vs. Wild podcast. Here with Josh Handy. I'm in the midst of HandyLand.
Yes, you're
and
here.
You showed me around here today. Gotta say, tell everyone about this flying machine that you have in the garage before we get started, because that is tremendous. That was mind-blowing.
Well, it's been a really cool adventure. My dad, he's retired now, but he's a former aviation guru. He flew for 25 years privately, commercially for lots of different clients. And he's also a retired engineer, former Meyer tool engineer for Pratt & Whitney. And over the years, he's built planes that he's actually flown off the farm here. Growing up, he had a 300-acre backyard, and by the time he was in his 20s, he was flying planes that he had rebuilt off of the family farm.
Right.
And it's cool because he always talked about wanting to start another project, and retired a few years ago. He took on a project of a plane called the Skypop. It was actually designed by the same guy that designed the Cessnas. I believe it was back in the late 70s or early 80s. And the Skypop is the ultralight version of the Cessna. And my dad, along with my brother and my nephew, which is my dad's grandson, all picked out the plans for the Skypop. And a year and a half later, we've got a fully constructed plane sitting in the barn right outside. My dad actually just mounted the engine yesterday, and we're getting ready to put the prop on, which is actually sitting there
behind me.
Yeah, the full prop is sitting right behind him. And we're getting ready to test everything out. He hasn't flown it yet. We haven't even taxied it yet. But and he's been talking about building a plane for years, rebuilding another plane. And this is something that he built from scratch. They literally just sent him a book with specific instructions on alignments and measurements. And he had to go out and source all the material himself. Nobody told him what to do or how to do it. But they do have this cool Facebook group.
Right.
So shout out to them. They're really cool. It's the Skypop Facebook group, and there's people from all around the world that are in this group that envy this airplane, and they follow the people that have built the planes. And it's cool. My dad's he's been helping people in Australia and like Czechoslovakia, and he's got these Grand Prix racers that are following him and his build because they think it's so cool that he's building this airplane. A lot of countries don't have the type of resources or materials that we have access to here, and so they can't even build the plane. If they were to try and build the plane, they'd have to come to Canada or the U.S. A lot of countries, and it's cool. There's been people hit him up, and Dad's been like weighing the materials that he has to help them source the materials that they actually need in different countries. So it's really cool. He's kind of like a mentor to him.
Yeah, and he's got a whole global community.
No, he does. Yeah.
Well, like I said, it's not every day that you see an airplane in the barn.
No, it's
not in this day and age. Not a crop duster or anything.
No, and that's actually really a really cool thing. There's an airfield about 5 minutes down the road with several different hangars of other people that have moved to the area and put their planes here. So we have like our own little flying aviation club within this area that people don't even know about.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Just tucked away here.
In the middle of the hills.
In the middle of the hills.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, and so, Josh, like you were mentioning earlier, we met each other on Warped Tour. You were out with My Life versus Your Vacation.
Yes, sir.
And doing big things. One of the big stars on Warped Roadies.
Warped Roadies was a fun time. That was a big thanks to my boy Danny Bateman for getting me involved with Warped Tour, for me to even be a part of that Warped Roadies experience.
Well, I guess that's going to bring me to my first real question is, how do you go from being, a civilian on the streets to being on Warped Tour, being on Warped Roadies? Like, what was the path like to get from
I've been asked that question, especially when I talk to people and they find that I'm just this Kentucky boy and I've worked my way in with a bunch of Salt Lake and California boys. They're like, how in the world did that even ever come about? And it is a really cool adventure, and I could dig back and tell you all kinds of cool things, but I could have gone to college after graduating high school, and I could have gone to play football, or I could have done some sort of
pro wrestling.
I could have done pro wrestling. I didn't have the long hair when I graduated, but I could have started to grow it out. But I always wanted to be a race car driver. That's really what I wanted to do. And then about 16 years old, I realized that I wanted to become an actor, or I wanted to have some form of an entertainment-related position.
Right.
And whether it be with music or with film, I didn't completely know. I just knew that I wanted to be a part of it. So by the time I graduated, I didn't go to college, but I won this acting competition in Columbus, Ohio with my friend Brandon Hamilton. We both got a call back from this gentleman named Chambers Stevens, who's he's a pretty big deal. He's a huge acting coach. He's helped develop a lot of kids through Disney and just a lot of different things. He has a lot of plays that are playing in L.A. and surrounding areas. He discovered us there and actually offered us an apartment to come out to L.A. He'd start teaching us acting school. Just come out and be a part of it. I want to introduce you guys to some people. And
soak in the culture.
Yeah, just see if this is something that if you want to be an actor, you want to be a part of it, the best time is now. And fresh out of high school, I was scared, man. That's something that I didn't honestly expect, but being there in the mix of just taking everything in, I fell in love just with the idea of what I could be. Or it just gave me the feeling of knowing that if you work hard and you just pay attention to your day-to-day, you have unlimited opportunity to really just grasp and take advantage of whatever you're trying to do.
Right.
And LA taught me a lot. I actually, the first time I went, I only lasted for about a month. My friend Brandon and I have tons of crazy stories about what went down. But we ran out of money quick, man. We got scared. We actually, we drove all the way out there from Kentucky. We stuck for about a month, and we came home. We drove all the way back. Brandon, he went into he did lots of different things, but in specific, he went to broadcasting school at NKU, and he ended up becoming the traffic reporter for Channel 5 News in downtown Cincinnati.
All right, shout out to Brandon.
Shout out to Brandon. He's a good friend of mine. He recently just got married to his wife, Chelsea. I actually haven't even met her yet, but he's a big reporter out in Phoenix right now, so he's doing some awesome things. She's a reporter. They met that way in the industry, so he's never lost touch with being a part of the entertainment realm as well, right. And that was kind of our vision from all along. The second time I went back out, I actually stuck for 2 years, and I met a lot of different people. I started working for Victor Salva, which is he's been in a lot of heat here lately. His whole deal that he got in trouble with many years ago. I don't know if you know Victor, but Victor's the director of Powder and Jeepers Creepers.
Yes, I've heard about some of the hot water that he's been in lately.
There's been a little hot water, but just so anybody that is listening to, Victor is a fantastic person, and I learned a lot from Victor the time that I was working for him. And he simply, he found me through my acting coach's neighbor, who was the accountant for a lady that knew him. And it was just this weird little deal, but it was all connected. And they knew I was a Kentucky boy that could fix things, and he needed some repair on his sprinkler system. He was up on the Hollywood Hills, and a lot of the wash would break the sprinkler systems out there, real brittle systems. And it's a simple PVC, man. I could go out there and I was like, I could fix it up.
Hell, it's a simple PVC, brother.
It's a simple PVC fix here, bro. We can make this work. So yeah, they're like, well, yeah, why don't you go up there and fix it for him? And I did, and found out that he needed an assistant to help him with his day to day. The man was developing Peaceful Warrior at the time with Nick Nolte, and needed a personal assistant. I was like, well, dude, I can do anything. And he made me his personal assistant, and I worked with him for well over a year on lots of different things. Got to go to a bunch of his meetings about film, and it really inspired me more on the back end to want to be a part of producing films, making and creating films, not just acting in them, but owning and being a part of the entire experience.
Right.
And Victor kind of gave me that fire and the expertise or the knowledge. He'd have me read 5 or 6 different scripts and give him my best evaluation on what I feel would be a good script for him to potentially shoot for. He'd give me just boxes of scripts, and it taught me a lot just about, the whole back end before you ever even get to making a film. There's so much that goes into it, and it was a very intriguing thing for me, and I'm still a part of it. To this day, there's so many different things, man. But going from, I know I got on a little...
I love it. Go ahead.
Rant about that, but in relation to how it all related to Warped Tour and all of that, all of this was happened before I even got a part of Warped Tour.
Right.
But, I found myself involved with a lot of different things that got me to that point, and working with Victor, doing a few different sales-related jobs thereafter. My grandfather passed away, and I ended up coming back home after 2 years of living in LA. Still had the love and the passion to be a part of film, but I knew I had to be back home closer to my family when my grandfather passed, and that was actually 10 years ago. And when I came back home, I got involved with a couple different sales organizations that actually taught me a lot about the street and the core value of just simple communication between an individual, you and somebody else. And the most simple thing that you can do is be able to look at somebody in the eye and have a conversation with them, and they understand exactly what you're talking about, and what their feeling is about whatever it might be that you're talking about. You know? And that's what I learned from these different sales companies. And I soon found myself out here traveling on a bunch of different marketing tours, man. I started traveling as Mr. Peanut in the Macys Day Parade.
Did you wear the peanut costume?
I did. I wore the costume for 2 years straight. It was a really cool thing. There's a very good friend of mine. His name is Donnie White. We all call him Freeze. He's this He's an awesome dude from Vegas. He's the one that actually introduced me to everybody that I know now. He's the reason I know Danny, even.
Right.
He was the tour manager for Planters Peanuts. And they came through Cincinnati, and they needed a mascot. And I was like, well, I can be a mascot. Well, what kind of mascot? And I didn't even know what mascot I was going to be. They just told me what time to be down there. And I did. I showed up, and I opened up the trunk, and it was this big, beautiful Mr. Peanut costume. And I said, what in the world is going on? They're like, oh, yeah, we have this big corporate kickoff. We're doing this tour with Mr. Peanut, and we're going to all the major college basketball games for the NCAA tournament. I'm like, oh, well, that's awesome. I got in that suit, man, and I just rocked it out. We were in front of all the executives, everybody from Kroger, Kraft, they were all there celebrating the launch of the tour. And apparently I blew it out of the park because they're like, hey, why don't you just continue on the rest of the tour with us? Because they normally were just going to hire a Mr. Peanut in every city.
Right.
And I soon found myself...
But you got the gig.
I got the gig. I found myself on the road. Next I know, they sent me up to Syracuse, and I was playing Pop-A-Shot basketball against the newscaster and the news anchor up there in Syracuse. Real fun gig. Then they had me playing basketball with like Butler and a couple of the other teams. I was out there just doing all these cool promotional videos as Mr. Peanut. And finally made it to the Final Four, holding the trophy, just, everything about it, getting out on the court and getting to dribble around. It was a really cool experience. And once that was over, I got called up to the press box, the Kraft press box. Kraft owns Planters Peanuts. And they're like, we have a question for you, and it's up to you, but we'd love to offer you the opportunity of being Mr. Peanut in the Macys Day Parade. And I was like, well, that's obviously incredible. Yeah, I'll accept. And I got to do it for 2 years before the marketing company that I was working through. I don't know if the contract ended or what happened, but it's real expensive to run a campaign or promo in the Macy's Parade. So the fact that I got to do it for those 2 years was amazing. And through mutual people that I just started meeting along the way, I've done so many different tours. I couldn't even tell you. I travel with lots of different bands, lots of big tours, and somehow it led me to meeting Danny. And Danny was the crew chief of all of Warped Tour, which is really cool. He worked for Warped Tour for 10 years by the time I had met him, or maybe 8 years. But he said there was always some times where the gaps would open up, where he needed hardworking people to come in and be a part of his team. And as the setup crew, we were responsible for setting up the entire sponsor world interactive of the tour, the whole backbone. We had stage managers that would manage each stage, which we had 8 or 9 stages sometimes.
Right.
But we were responsible for everything in between. And our production manager would make sure that where we're setting up everything, there's a whole flow, the fire lane, everything about the whole festival. When you have 20 to 30,000 kids a day, and we have over 30 semis worth of gear that have to spill out and be set up in less than 2.5 hours. It's a logistical nightmare. So Danny's responsibility was to make sure that he had a consistent team that was capable in any condition, weather permitting. Like, it didn't matter. We had to be there and show up and work. And I got offered that gig. And so Danny brought me on. And the year that I went on was actually the first year that they started filming Warped Roadies, the first season. And so I was in a couple of the episodes in the first season of Warped Roadies, but I wasn't really like, I guess, a character, I guess you could say. But by the time we got to the second season, which was the year following, that's when I had a good opportunity to kind of tell my story, so to speak. And it was just cool, man. We tore it up. We had such a good time out on Warped Tour, and I'm just grateful for that opportunity.
Well, yeah, I'm grateful that you got there from Mr. Peanut to Warped Tour, because now look at us. I know. We're sitting here doing this podcast.
We're talking about in the middle of the hills here, man. Like, I'm so glad you came out, bro. This is fun.
Hey, I'm having a great time. And, Josh, it's pretty inspirational because we don't live that far from each other. I mean, the United States is a pretty big place.
It's a big place.
So the fact that we only live about an hour from each other, it's pretty inspirational for me to see, like, hey, this is somebody from my own backyard, basically.
Yeah.
Sitting around here making these huge moves. So it inspires me.
It inspires me that you're doing what you're doing.
Hey,
And I
thank you
found
so
out
much.
you're doing a podcast. It's like, man, this is cool. Like, anybody that I'm associated with, some way or somehow, they're making moves for themselves. And it's cool to be a part of that circle. Just knowing people that are making those moves and are willing to take that risk. So, I mean, I think it's great.
Oh, well, thanks, bro.
Yeah.
I got a couple questions for you. One, how good were you at basketball?
Basketball was my...
Was it your jam?
No, actually...
You had to learn on the fly there as Mr. Peanut?
I was really good at defense, but wearing that costume, I couldn't get my arms like literally above my chest. So when I was holding the ball, like I had to like push it up against the costume and then try and shoot it. It was wild. But defense, man, I was big. I was tall. So I was able to block. I was able to get in there and jive. It was fun.
That's great.
Yeah.
Also, too, what was the response like for Warped Roadies once it hit the air? Like, what was some of the feedback that you got
about the show itself?
Yeah, just now you're on a national level, international level. I mean, it's a popular show.
Yeah, I mean, especially once it moved from Fuse to Hulu, I realized that a lot of people had started watching the show that would have never watched it on Fuse, but being on Hulu was another whole wave that we didn't even expect. It was cool. It was kind of a crazy feeling. When it all started happening, we were doing these photo shoots and this and that, and we were just out there doing our work. And in the midst of that, Terry Myers and we were running My Life for Certification. So we had MLVYV, we had setup crew, and we had a TV show that we all had to worry about. And the biggest thing, Kevin and the production crew, they wanted to make sure that we were just being us. Like, don't put on a show just for...
Yeah, don't ham it up. Yeah. Play to the camera.
I mean, and it is what it is. We had a lot of fun on Warped Tour, but regardless, it didn't really set in until we had a photo shoot with everybody just kind of piled up on stage. There's about 10 or 12 of us in the shoot. And I was on tour maybe 5 or 6 months after that. And because the Warped Roadies show didn't even come on until December or January after the tour had ended. And I was in New York, and somebody, actually Kevin had called somebody that we were touring with and said, "Hey, did you see our pictures?" And we were like, "No, we haven't seen our pictures." And he's like, "Well, you should go down to Madison Square Garden." And I said, "Oh, okay, well, let's go down to Madison Square Garden." And we go down, and we look up on the side of Madison Square Garden, and our faces were literally like 20 feet tall, and they were advertising the Warped Roadies Season 2. And it was kind of like, wow, man, I didn't... And still even at that point, I don't know if it really set in, but it was just one of those things. I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I knew I was going to be a part of something like that. It was just... it was a cool feeling. So anybody that I met and related, like from that point, I just tried to instill positivity. Yeah. And I have got a good response. I mean, I wouldn't say I've been a very recognizable person in the masses, but I have gotten approached before. Yeah. And it is cool to talk to those people, especially when they find out that we've been a part of the show, and they respect the people that have traveled on all these tours. Especially when we're at music festivals or traveling on these cruises, we've gotten recognized by a lot of different people that are within the industry. So it's cool to know that other tour managers and other people in different parts of the industry and touring world have watched that show, and to have been a part of that was. It's a great thing.
How surreal is it, too? Kevin Lyman gives you a call and says, "Hey, go down to Madison Square Garden."
I know. He's like, "Have you seen the picture?" And I was like, no, we
on the side of the most iconic arena in the United States.
Well, my good friend, his name is Joe Hustle. Shout out to my friend Joe. Ever since kindergarten, he always told me, he said, from kindergarten to Madison Square Garden. And that's when it hit me. I was like, man, we made it to Madison Square Garden, bro. Here we are. And it was a cool thing. And from that point, I've always been real positive in my day to day. Not that I wasn't prior to. It's just I felt that I had a reason to make sure that I was that positive influence. And there's a lot of things I'm trying to accomplish still. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to do too much, but I've really narrowed it down. And I've got a clear focus and emphasis on what we're trying to do at this moment. And I'm doing a lot of different things, man, but we've got some cool things going on that I'll be real excited to tell everybody about.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, too, you mentioned, we were just talking about Warped Tour, but you're talking about cruises.
Yeah.
And so somehow you've gotten into the world of these cruises. I guess these convention type, these specialty type cruises.
Yes, sir. There's actually a phenomenal company called Sixth Man. They're based out of Atlanta, and really incredible story for people that don't know about Sixth Man. But there's a gentleman named Andy Levine who used to be a part of the whole Bare Naked Ladies and I can't think of the other bands off the top of my head, but he used to be Sister Hazel. He was a part of all those bands and touring around with them, and they were actually out on a cruise, on one of the Carnival cruises, and a lot of the people were kind of, they were really pumped up about the fact that these bands were on the cruise with them, and Andy had the epiphany, like, wow, this would be a really cool thing. Maybe I should throw a concert on the cruise for all the guests here. And he kind of threw this cool little surprise concert and realized that there was a business in throwing these private exclusive cruises with bands, taking them to throughout the Caribbean, Jamaica, different places, and giving fans a more interactive experience with their favorite artists. And the company has been around for, I believe, 18 years now, and they've done well over 100 cruises, and I've been fortunate to be a part of over 30 of those cruises. And we do everything from Kiss to Kid Rock. We've done the Leonard Skinner cruise. We're doing the Impractical Jokers cruise. We have a new wrestling cruise with John Cena coming up next year. I don't know if you even knew about that. We briefly talked about
the Chris Jericho Rock and
Chris
Ranger
Jericho,
at Sea.
I'm sorry, yeah, Chris Jericho, not John Cena.
Hey, John Cena might be there.
Hey, he could be. I'm not saying anything.
I'm not saying he's not, but I'm not saying he is.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying he's not.
Jericho.
Guys. Make sure you get it.
They're all the same. Well, they're a little different.
Chris Jericho, man, one of my favorite just pop culture, faces right now. Love his podcast. He does awesome in wrestling, but he does a bunch of other awesome things. He's a I'm just a big fan of his because, much like you, a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah.
And whenever I found out that you were going to be, or that you are a part of this rock and wrestling rager at sea, I was like, oh my gosh, Handy, you made it to the big time.
Yeah, man. No, it's been a cool thing. The first cruise that we have coming up is the Warped Rewind cruise.
Yep, and that's one that I really wanted to chat with you about because that's coming up here very shortly.
Yeah, actually, I leave October 27th. We fly to New Orleans, and we port from New Orleans, and we're going to Mexico. But we have a lot of awesome bands. Kevin Lyman has partnered with our company, Sixth Man, company that I've been working with, and they put together this awesome cruise. And I believe we've got right around 20 bands or so that are heading out to sea, and it's the first year that Warped Rewind's happening, but a lot of people are pumped up about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're on vacation. You get to see all your favorite bands.
Yeah,
and the dynamic there on those cruises, I'm just like, you could go at any point, maybe go have dinner, and your favorite band will be right there having dinner alongside with you. Or
exactly.
You go to have drinks, and they're there at the bar with you, or you're at the casino, or whatever it is.
And that's it, yeah. And it's more of a personal time, a one-on-one experience that you get to have. And when you're out there on the cruise and seeing all the people that come together for that one reason, the feeling is overwhelming. And people meet each other for the first time, and they become lifelong friends, you know. And that's one of the coolest things that I have seen from the cruises is that it unites people in a way that they would have never assumed to have ever happened. You know, they wouldn't have thought that would have happened.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those things where these people are passionate, these cruise attendees, they're passionate about whatever the theme is, whether it's Kiss or Kid Rock or Warped Tour or wrestling or whatever. And it's probably not going to be your average fan. It's going to be somebody that's willing to pay a little bit of money to go on this getaway.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they're going to meet other rabidly passionate fans as well and unite under one common, passion in their life.
No, and it's really exciting to be a part of that, man. When I first came on, I was more of like, a production assistant. I was there kind of filling in a lot of different roles. And now it's cool. I'm a venue manager. I manage one of the venues. The majority of the time it's the pool deck now, but I learned from some really awesome people that are more like mentors to me that have worked with Six Man. There's an awesome man named Dave Scruggs, who I learned from, who's actually the theater manager. Taught me a lot of different things, and that's what I do with the pool deck now. So the pool deck's the largest venue on the ship, where we'll have the largest stage set up, and everything front of house wise, making sure access is clear, people are cool. Our ADA sections are set up for people that if they need ADA access, everything out in front of the stage and working with the customer is what I handle, and I'll have a team that is with me to help monitor and or just bring things to my attention if they need to be solidified. And we have a stage manager that obviously handles everything production wise and behind the stage and timing wise, and it's such a good team that we've got. And we've got like 6 or 7 stages set up and music and different activities happening for 4 days straight, and it's just this insane monster. And the Six Man has such a strong team. I've learned so much being with the team that's based out of Atlanta. There's so many amazing people that work for that company, and seeing them all work together and how they have put together such an amazing experience for these guests time after time, and hardly having any mishaps is incredible. Like they've blown me away, and to be a part of that has taught me a lot.
Did you in any way have anything to do with Warped Tour coming to the ocean? Did you help facilitate that deal?
No, I wasn't a part of that deal, but I witnessed it happen.
I was there.
I was there. No, there's a really cool situation. There's a very special person, a part of Six Man. Her name is Darby Moeller Myers. She actually just recently got married to Terry Moeller Myers. Darby is a director now at Six Man, but she has developed and or brought a lot of different contacts to Six Man, and she's the one that actually came to Warped Tour, and she would travel with us on Bus 4 several different times, but they originally brought the idea up to Kevin when Darby was there at Warped Tour, and just kind of started tossing the idea around, hey, it would be cool if you ever thought about wanting to do a cruise. You should definitely do it. And what Kevin did is he sent a couple of his girls out to that work in his marketing team to see what they kind of thought about the feel, and they formed a partnership, and now here we are. But yeah, that goes credit to Darby and the Six-Man core team. She has a very good group of people that work for her that have helped her develop multiple cruises. So
that's awesome. And I'm just really excited for the idea of Warped Cruise, because obviously partnering music and festivities on a cruise ship. What better way to have a vacation? You don't have to leave the ship if you don't want to, because there's stuff going on. But
right.
Also too, I feel like for those out there going, it's going to be kind of a different dynamic that I think maybe it's going to be a lot more older, like an older generation going. Maybe people that don't go to Warped Tour every year because they're maybe outnumbered 5-1 with kids.
No, exactly.
Now they can go, and they've got the money, they've got they're getting away, and they're seeing the bands that they love and new bands.
Yep.
And it's going to be kind of a cool dynamic, I feel like.
Yeah, it's bringing Warped Tour back in a whole new wave. You could always throw a concert on the concrete, but the fact that this just separates it a little bit, once those fans, being that this is the first year, once they actually get out there and they experience everything that the cruise can deliver to them, this is going to be a long time coming. This cruise is going to go for many years to come.
Yeah, exactly. And it's getting those fans back from maybe 10 years ago that love to go to Warped Tour, but man, it's 100 degrees outside. We're on blacktop, maybe they're not going to be able to go out there and hack it during the summer. They don't, want to. Now they can have a nice getaway, make a whole vacation,
Yeah, I can sit in a cool little chair with my toes in the sand, drinking a tequila shot with one of my favorite bands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What bands are you most excited about?
I grew up listening to Good Charlotte, man. So the fact that they're out there and a big part of this, I'm very, I'm just pumped that they're a part of. I don't know the whole back end or who all's actually coming out, but I wouldn't be surprised if they have a few tricks up their sleeve.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen. I can't say, but I wouldn't be surprised.
They always do. Like when we were there in 2014, one day. so thankful that it happened. With Linkin Park played on Warped Tour one day.
Yeah, we were let's see, that was in Pomona, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. All of a sudden, there's Chester up on stage just ripping it. I mean, yeah, that was a cool moment. I'd never actually got to see Linkin Park live, so it was cool that we got to see that.
I'm just saying it's like a once in a lifetime. Now it is a once in a lifetime thing. Like if you haven't seen them, like that's, you're not going to see them in their original lineup. So the fact that, they randomly played Warped Tour, or they brought out A Day to Remember randomly,
right?
I'm sure they'll have a few surprises.
Oh, for sure.
On the seat,
Kevin is
pulling out all the stops.
Kevin's an awesome person, man. Like he gets it, and he knows what the fans want. That's what he cares most about. That's what I've noticed. He really cares about the people that care about Warped Tour. And he realizes that if it wasn't for them, that Warped Tour wouldn't still be here today. But that man has worked his butt off to make sure that things are the way they are now. And it's cool that he's stepping out of the circle a little bit to take this cruise on. And,
right.
It's I give him a lot of respect. Kevin's a very good person. You should try and get Kevin on your show.
I would love to have Kevin on the show. It's it's a reoccurring name that keeps coming up.
You should have Kevin Lyman on your show, bro.
Yeah, you know what? I would love to. I did send out a tweet the other day. He did hit me back, so hopefully something comes of that.
Hey, Kev, I might shoot you a text and tell you to do this show.
Hey, man, I appreciate any of the help that you can give. And it's funny, too, that you said you're stoked on Good Charlotte, because this is going to bring it almost full circle around. But the first time that I ever went to Warped Tour, growing up, I didn't know much about like punk rock music. I had my sister's friends. My sister is 3 years older than me, and she had some friends. Like, they were the kids in school that skateboarded and, wore the Dead Kennedy shirts to school or the Misfits shirts to school. And I didn't really know anything about it. I was listening to, Korn and Limp Bizkit or whatever. And then they randomly one day found out that I played drums. And they're like, hey, would you like to play drums in this band that we're starting? We're just goofing around in the garage. And I was like, okay, I've never really been in a band before, but yeah, I'd love to.
Yeah.
So they wisened me up really quick about, and I fell in love with, Newfound Glory and Less Than Jake and Saves the Day and Alkaline Trio and all these bands. But the first time I ever went to Warped Tour, right around that time, 2002, 3 maybe, and it was right here in Sparta, Kentucky.
No way.
That's where the Warped Tour was. It was in
okay.
Sparta, Kentucky,
at
right
the
up the road here. Yep, at the racetrack. And the very first band that I saw that day, the opener on the main stage, was Good Charlotte.
No way.
Yep.
That's cool.
So that was like the moment that I kind of fell in love with Warped Tour, was Good Charlotte. And I mean, this lineup was crazy because you had Good Charlotte, and then Midtown played, and then 311 was there that year, and AFI was there that year.
Oh, it was stacked.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic. I got to see NoFX and Me First and the Gimme Gimmes and all these other bands, and I was just, from then on, it was like every year I had to go. Every summer I had to go multiple times.
Yeah.
So, man, if they ever got Warped Tour back here in Sparta,
I know.
It's right here in the backyard.
I don't know how the whole venue selection works, so I don't really know exactly, but I've heard that from several people that they would like it to come back to the Speedway. I just don't know logistically if it was a good thing for them at the time, but Riverbend in Cincinnati is
right up the road.
Yeah, so...
They did a Warped Junior at one point in Louisville.
Oh, really?
Yep. So it was like kind of an off day where they got a few of the bands together to do like a little Warped Junior.
Oh, that's cool.
So that was really cool to be able to see, like, hey, Yellow Card play in Louisville, because even though Louisville's a pretty major city,
right,
we don't get a lot of tours coming through too much.
I've heard that too.
Got to go to Indy or Cincy.
Really?
Yep. So
I wonder why. Because they're already coming to Cincy?
I don't know. I think it's just maybe the venue.
Yeah.
But Katy Perry did come last night, so...
Did she?
So we got Katy Perry.
I bet that was a big show.
We haven't got Yellow Card in about 10 years, but we got Katy Perry.
Well, Katy, yeah, she'll fill a stadium.
Traffic backed up for miles.
It's like the president coming to town.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Hey, do we have the Katy Perry mobile, the bulletproof Katy Perry mobile? So, but yeah, and so you got all these cruises coming up, and like I said, I was stoked on...
There's 12 cruises.
You have 12 cruises?
12 cruises, yeah. 3 starting Halloween is the first one. Then we have the Impractical Jokers, and then we end with Kiss, I believe.
Have you been on the Kiss cruise before?
Yeah, I did the Kiss cruise, I believe it was last year or the year before. Phenomenal cruise. Kiss puts on a great show. They do several different cool events on the cruise. Gene Simmons is I didn't realize how big the man was. He is a big guy.
He's Simmons. Like 6'4", and then you put him in the heels, and he's like 7 feet tall.
I had no idea. I mean, I kind of I figured he was a big guy, but standing next to him, he swallowed me, bro. And I kind of thought I was a big guy.
If we were in the Smithsonian today, which is my podcast little studio, overlooking everyone is a large framed portrait, a large framed promotional poster from like 1980 of Kiss.
Nice.
So I'm a huge Kiss fan.
Oh, great.
And the fact that you do the Kiss cruise, I mean, this is just me personally just being like, oh, hey, that's really awesome. Because huge Kiss fan, you might have heard me say rock and roll night podcast every Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's become the slogan of the show.
That's awesome.
But I grew up a huge Kiss fan.
You should consider the Kiss cruise at some point.
Man, I'll tell you what, the Kiss cruise and the Wrestling Rager, it's right up my alley. I'm going to have to go on 2 cruises this year.
Well, once you come out on a 6-man cruise, you're already a part of the family. We've had several different cruisers come on multiple of the cruises that we actually host, all because they came on one of them. So
right.
Yeah,
well,
you'll come on several of them.
Yeah,
you're welcome anytime.
I would love to be there, guys. If you need me, I'm going to be in full Kiss face paint. With a tank top tan line. That's going to be me.
It's actually cool. One of the walls on the cruise ship is a huge panda, and every year somebody paints one of the stars over the panda eye, so we call it the Kiss Panda. But
nice.
He's like his own little celebrity and doesn't even know it.
Right.
Because he's a picture.
Because he's a picture. He's not a real panda, guys. Animal rights activists, if you're listening, it's not a real panda. It's a painting. It's a panda painting.
A lot of pictures next to the Kiss Panda.
Paul Panda. You got these cruises. Got a lot of irons in the fire. And we were talking, too, about, doing some charity work. We got together a couple years ago. Are you still into doing a lot of charity?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. I actually just met with Debbie Bowman yesterday, who is the director for Boys Hope, Girls Hope here in Cincinnati. And I haven't so much been a part of being a part of charity work here lately, just because I've had a lot of different things go on. But I'm still affiliated and or supporting any time that I can. There was one point there where when I was doing things with Boys Hope, Girls Hope, I was an associate board member at one point there at the Cincinnati office. And, just being there for the kids and speaking to them and learning about their lives was so rewarding. And just knowing that they have all but the best intentions. They have nothing but the best intentions. And just being a part of that and knowing that you can kind of help guide their mentality towards a positive direction, it's one of the best things that I've ever done. So in some capacity, I'm always going to be a part of it. I haven't had as much time to contribute towards it, but I look forward to starting my own foundation one day. And we'll do a lot of really cool things for a lot of people. That's probably going to be within the next couple years.
You're very charismatic. I can see you as being a good leader for, especially like the youth. You know what I'm saying? Like you'd be a great big brother.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Showing them how to do stuff.
Of course.
Showing them how to, make something of themselves and to dream big. But remember, there's more to life than just, it's always a big thing. There's more to life than just dreaming about what you want. You got to work.
You have to work hard. And that's what I've learned a lot from my father, and seeing the type of man that he is and the type of man that my grandfather was is a big reason on why I do what I do today. I can't ever find myself sitting down and just not doing something. At least if I am sitting, I'm doing something that at least makes me feel somewhat productive.
Right.
And that's really instilled a lot of positive energy in my life. And I feel that can be voiced and instilled in a lot of people. It's just kind of showing them the way. They have to be shown that is capable, as I was also shown myself. And once you have that positive encouragement, man, it's unlimited what you're capable of doing. And I'm learning more and more every day. I didn't know that I didn't know how to do it.
Right.
You know, I mean, but you at least got to try. And if you make a mistake, I mean, that's the best part. You get to learn from that. And it's up to you at that point whether you're going to fix it and do something differently. And if you don't want to change something, then you keep beating yourself up a little bit. You'll figure out some way that you need to change something. And as long as you want to, you'll be fine.
I've said it on the podcast, several times, but I keep going back to it. Listeners, let that be a pro tip for you. And here's a pro tip from me. Just simply, don't be afraid in this day and age to fail and make mistakes, because that is how you learn. The person that did everything completely, perfectly, the right way the first time, which never happens, that person doesn't learn anything. You know what I'm saying?
That's very true.
It's just you stumbled into it.
Those are good words.
You know? Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things. Don't be afraid to make a mistake. And I feel in this day and age, a lot of people are. A lot of people give up before they ever attempt to do something.
Yeah.
Because making a mistake, it can be brutal. You know, with the internet and social media and all that sort of thing.
Of course.
Making a mistake can be brutal. But don't be afraid.
You can't be afraid.
You got to go out there and do it. You got to live your life.
You have to.
Otherwise, you're just going to be hanging out watching that 70s show on Netflix. Which is what I've been doing for the past week.
And I mean, sometimes there's nothing wrong with taking some time for yourself and just unwinding and watching some TV, because sometimes that's when the most clarity might come about. In a sense, that's a form of meditation, you know, and if that's how you have to do that, to unwind or release, therefore your mind can explore, that's what you do, you know, so.
I get my best thinking done in the shower.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I take long showers, and it's because I'm usually just sitting around like, I don't know, like putting my day together or whatever. Like, I'm going to do this, or this is what I need to do today.
Heck,
for some reason, when I take a shower, that's when my moment of clarity always comes.
Heck, yeah. Mine usually comes, I'm thinking as soon as I wake up, but I find that when I go downstairs, I get my cup of coffee. If it's not too cold, I like to go out on the deck and I'll swing on the chair a little bit. Watching the birds fly around and just being a part of nature gives me the most clarity that I experience. It comes through doing things like that.
Yeah, you got to get back into nature.
Yeah.
Guys, go outside.
Just go outside.
You know what? Turn the TV off, go outside.
Just take a walk, and
get back to nature.
I'm not going to lie. I was actually, I don't know if you've heard of Eli's Barbecue.
I haven't.
Phenomenal
but I'm interested.
Place. Yeah.
Yes, go ahead. Continue.
I'll tell you where this leads to, but it was a real funny story. Being in nature, I went for a little hike yesterday. My business partner, Bolin Miller, he just flew in yesterday, so I've kind of been showing him around town a little bit, which I've told you a little bit about, but we're actually producing a film here in Kentucky, which is going to be incredible.
Yeah. And guess what, guys? Listeners out there, you're going to get a whole additional episode of the Sean vs. Wild podcast this week, because we're talking all about the movie on Friday. So
yes,
tune into that. You're going to get a full hour's worth of this movie is going to be incredible. So
I'm not even going to say anything about it, just because
we'll leave it to episode 2.
Yeah, I'm going to let you ask the questions as far as that, but we are making a film. Anyway, my business partner, writer, director of this film, he just flew in from Portland, Oregon. I took him to Eli's Barbecue yesterday. I've kind of been showing him around all the good food spots. There's so much good food throughout Cincinnati and Kentucky. So I've been showing him the spots. And on the way back, we found this little California Woods Nature Preserve. And I was like, oh, cool. I know of a cool little hiking spot up here. And I just wanted to show him some stuff. And we get out on this backwoods trail. And all of a sudden, this guy, he starts walking through, and we're out in the middle of nowhere. So the fact that he was there was kind of surprising. And he's looking up at the trees, and all of a sudden, he goes up, and he simply just gives the tree a hug. And I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I didn't know if there was something weird going on, but he simply was just touched for being in this forest. He felt like he needed to hug the tree, and he did. And I got to witness him doing this. And sometimes in relation to what we're talking to, you just got to go out and experience nature, man, and give a tree a hug.
Heck yeah, dude. We're two Kentucky and Indiana boys growing up on the in the wilderness here. We know what it's all about.
Yeah.
So, well, I'll tell you what. As we wrap up this part 1 of the podcast, let me just ask you: where can people find what you're doing online? Where can you shoot everyone the deets on where they can get more Josh Handy in their lives?
Yeah, a lot of people have been checking out my IMDb. You can check out my IMDb profile. Simply just type in Josh Handy. My LinkedIn profile, I've been talking to a lot of people on LinkedIn. A lot of my connections recently have been coming through LinkedIn. It's such a huge, powerful tool. Anybody that needs any tips on how to effectively use LinkedIn, they can hit me up because I've learned some pretty cool things. Also, you can simply come to my Facebook. I don't post so much on Twitter or Instagram, but what Bolin and I have done, we formed a production company here locally in Kentucky called Two Birds Productions. And that's the management company that's going to be hosting our up-and-coming film. So they can even, anybody listening can follow Two Birds Productions. Any releases and or news updates, we'll be informing everybody through that. But IMDb and LinkedIn, Facebook are all good ways to keep up with what we have going on. And we'll be launching new websites here coming soon. Now that we've partnered up with Northern Kentucky University and their informatics program, they have plans on helping us build out something pretty exceptional. So we're looking forward to that.
Well, fantastic. Well, Josh, this first hour has been fantastic. I'm inspired, and I feel like I knew you would be. And I've gotten a lot of info, man, and I think a lot of the listeners are going to be, I think they're going to be inspired, too, to do their own thing. And you've given a lot of great advice, and we're going to continue in part 2. Guys, part 2 will come out on Friday, but it's all going to be focused on Josh's latest project here. And we'll get into all those deets on Friday. But if you like what you heard today, which something tells me you did because you made it all the way to the end of the episode, you can like, share, and subscribe.
We talked a lot.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
We talked a whole lot. So
I could talk a lot longer, but...
and we will.
We will, yes. Okay.
But yeah, guys, you can like, share, and subscribe to the Sean vs. Wild podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. It's also on YouTube. I don't do a lot on YouTube, but it's there if you like to listen to your podcasts on YouTube. Follow me on Twitter. Like the Facebook page. Write me a 5-star review. Whatever you want to do. Every little bit helps. I appreciate it. Anything you can do to increase the old visibility of the show helps me tremendously. It goes a long way. So
I actually just gave you a 5-star myself.
There you go. Handy gave me a 5-star. You can too. I appreciate it, brother. So yeah. All right, guys. Well, thanks so much for tuning in. This has been the Sean vs. Wild podcast.